Om Vishnu Pada Saraswati Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Goswami Maharaj Ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Saraswati Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Paramhansa Babaji Srila Gorkishwar Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Saptam Goswami Sachidananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Nitya Lila Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Shri Rup Sisan Khan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Guru Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Swarup Damodar Roy Ramanandari Gaura Parishad Vrinda Ki Namacharya Sila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sikhe Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dwara Samanatmakam Shri Brajamandala Dham Ki Shri Shamakunda Radhakunda Jamuna Ganga Tulasi Bhakti Devi Ki Shri Jagannath Baldeva Subhadra Sudashan Chakraju Ki Shri Purushottam Kshetra Jagannatha Puri Dham Ki Sarva Vigna Vinasana Narsingha Bhagavan Ki Bhakta Pravar Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Charo Sampradaya Acharya Ki Charo Dham Ki Kalamat Sri Chaitanya Mat Ki Sri Radha Govinda Mandir New Braj Dham Ki Sri Harinam Prabhu Ki Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Sri Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Gaur Premanande Sripad Bhaktivedanta Padmanabha Maharaj Ki
Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bhagavat Maharaj Ki So we're continuing with the secret truths of the Bhagavatam. So there's some real nectar coming today. It's all nectar, but today is very special what Gurudev is telling at the end of this chapter. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. You can tell them to be quiet now. Cross. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Nama Nityanandam Namastubhyam Prema Nanda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis headed by Pujapad Sri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Bhagavat Maharaj. Yeah. So, we are proceeding with the second chapter. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it. The second chapter of this book, which is the second lecture of a series of 7 evening lectures. In 1999, here. Yes. And basically, Srila Gurudev is doing an incredible presentation of the Srimad Bhagavatam by quoting various verses to introduce, just like always he would introduce Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning. And in this case, he went over the first three verses of the first canto, which are the invocation verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he began to speak about the sages and the questions that the sages asked through Shonaka Rishi. He highlighted a few verses there. And then he began to introduce the very key verse because they were asking, how can the Atma become completely satisfied? Yai Atma suprasidati. So that verse was quoted from the second chapter of first canto. What is that verse? Savai pungsam haro dharmo yato bhaktirad hokshaje ahaituki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. So, the first chapter is titled, I Meditate on the Absolute Truth. So that chapter was also Gurudev was mentioning in a very brief way the subject matter of that first verse and who is to be meditated upon and who is the first verse referring to. And he explained, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Swarup Damodar Goswami, from this Bhagavad Tarka Marichi Mala. He's not quoting it here, but in Hawaii, Gurudev had that book with him. And that's what he told about Swarup Damodar Goswami coming in the dream of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and telling him that actually the first verse, at the end of the first verse, you know, Param Satyam Dhimahi, right? I meditate upon the Param Satyam, the Supreme Absolute Truth. But we know that the obvious meaning is, who is that? Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, Krishna, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he proceeded to tell the 5 different personalities who this refers to. The first verse, ending with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then the second chapter, the second lecture in the series, is on the second verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. After the first verse, then comes the second verse, wherein the Srimad Bhagavatam it is being told by Srila Vyasadeva that here in this Bhagavatam, you will not find any cheating dharma. Kaitava dharma. And the name of the chapter is Srimad Bhagavatam does not cheat. So that was a very interesting, we're still in that chapter, but very interesting how Srila Gurudev proceeded to explain how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the Vedic literature. Then came the third verse, the ripened fruit, Nigamakalpa Taror Galitam Phalam, Shukamukad Amrita Dravasamtam, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam, Muraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. So he said, so many devotees are reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Shankaracharya also read it, and all his sannyasis read it. And Mayavadis, they also read Srimad Bhagavatam. Without their doing so, their business could not advance. What is their business? And they would not be able to attain followers and money, respect and praise. It is for these reasons that they read it. Actually, they are very, very learned and they can explain hundreds of meanings for one word, as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya did. They know more than we do. But actually, they do not understand Srimad Bhagavatam at all. Why? Because they do not hear from a realized Vaishnava who is a rasik, who can taste rasa, and who is bhavuk, who has bhav, transcendental emotion. So, Gurudev also quoted the verse that was spoken by Swarup Damodar Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that if you want to study the Srimad Bhagavatam that was told in the Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you want to study the Srimad Bhagavatam, then you must go to a Vaishnava. Ja Bhagavata Para. Para means to study. Ja Bhagavata Para Vaishnavera Stani. You will have to go to a Vaishnava. So Gurudev is going to be continuing in the last part of this lecture. The next section is described, the subtitle is The Benefit of High Class Association. And this is very key, how Gurudev emphasizes this. We read parts of this yesterday, and the verse was quoted, Bhakta pada duli ar, Bhakta pada jal, Bhakta bhukta avashesh, Teen Mahabal. And this is spoken by Mahaprabhu. He said that what? Bhakta pada duli, the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee. And Bhakta pada jal, water is washed the feet of the pure devotee. Bhakta bhukta avashesh, remnants of his prasadam. Then Gurudev explained there are two types of this type of remnants. You remember?
I wasn't here.
No, I'm just saying. If you've heard it before, but I'm always questioning everything.
Is one of them Hari Katha?
Yes. The other is the actual prasad. So Gurudev is saying you should have strong faith in this. Even if you are chanting a great deal and reading Bhagavatam a lot, it will not help you very much. If, however, you receive the remnants of any high-class Vaishnava, you will be greatly benefited. The remnants are of two kinds. The nectar of Harikatha and the nectar of Prasad. Other powerful substances are the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava and the water that has washed his feet. One must serve these with honor. Do not try to forcibly take a Vaishnava's foot dust, joking, quarreling, and wrestling with him and throwing him flat on the ground. Remember hearing Gurudev tell like that?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Try to be like Narada. So, he had become, this is already narrated about Narada, that Narada, he had become very near and dear to saintly persons in his previous life. When his mother, who was an attachment for him, quickly died after being bitten by a snake, he left home. In his trance, in his meditation, he easily saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very soon, the Lord appeared on the lotus of his heart. The Lord advised him, you should continue hearing, chanting, remembering, and speaking Harikatha to all. A day will come when death arrives, but you will not die. You will place your feet on the head of death. And this came to pass, and Narada attained his Siddha Deha, spiritual body, which is always present even when one is within the gross and subtle body. He realized his transcendental form, and in that form he traveled everywhere, sometimes within this world, sometimes to Goloka Vrindavan, sometimes to the abode of Narayan, and here and there. Without Guru, we cannot progress. But that Guru should not be like a Kali Yuga Guru. We are the property of Krishna. So Guru should bring us to the lotus feet of Krishna. That is Guru. Srimad Bhagavatam states that bhakti should not be like the bhakti of Dhruva. There was some defect in him. You know that the exalted devotee Narad initiated Dhruva. He initiated Prahlad Maharaj, and he also initiated Chitraketu Maharaj. But these three disciples, they were in different categories. Even if the Guru, here's a very important point that Gurudev is going to now develop. Even if the Guru wants to give the same thing to all, Goloka Vrindavan, service to Krishna, if the disciple has no past impressions, that guru cannot give it. He wants to give it, but the disciple cannot take it. Dhruva Maharaj had no past impressions. Although he performed severe austerities for 6 months, although he was ultimately able to live without air and water, he did not have previous impressions from association with high-class devotees. Therefore, Narada could not give him the purest bhakti. Srila Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they wanted to give all these things. And that is why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur began Nagar Sankirtan and Namhata. Srila Swami Maharaj also began in this way, but he could not give his disciples the pure devotion to Radha and Krishna that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to give. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not give this to Kala Krishna Das. That was his servant when he went to South India. He was with Kala Krishna Das in South India, but he could not give him this high class of devotion. The recipient requires sufficient impressions from this birth and also from previous births. If you neglect to associate with high-class Vaishnavas and neglect to realize all these truths, then Gurudev will not give it. Even though Gurudev wants to give this bhakti, and even though he can do anything, he will not deviate from this process. That is why Narad could not give it to Dhruva. That is why Dhruva is still in Dhruvaloka and not in Goloka Vrindavan. Then Gurudev is coming to the history of Devahuti and Kapila Dev.
I need to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
Kapila's father.
Yeah. This is for the...
Right.
Yeah.
Kapila's father.
Yeah.
Markandeya, not Markandeya.
No. Devahuti and Kardamamuni.
Kardamamuni.
Yes.
In the scheme of personalities that appear, he appears earlier in the Bhagavatam. So he doesn't have this either, right?
Kardamamuni?
Yeah, he's not considered a
he
pure.
doesn't.
He does not considered a pure devotee in the sense of having Braj Bhakti.
Not Braj Bhakti.
Yeah.
But he's pure.
Okay. He's
Yeah.
pure, but when you read...
Well, the levels of bhaktas,
Yeah.
the 5 levels of bhaktas,
Yeah.
he's in one of those categories.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, the Lord would not appear as his son, and Devahuti is also.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some discussion about this, so I was trying to clarify. Okay.
Yeah, this is... Hey, Haribol, we're having class.
Yeah, because when you read the Damodar Astakam and Gurudev's commentary, Varam Deva Moksha Chamoksham Vadita, and he talks about 2 classes of people who get moksha and go to the spiritual world, and they're living in Vaikuntha. And one class, he says, Sukhai Shovasya, I forget how to say it in Sanskrit, they have their own self-interest first.
Oh, yeah. Sukh Aishwarya Prem.
Aishwarya Prem. And then the other one,
Yeah.
they have Krishna's, they have
You tell them to
Vishnu's,
be quiet.
they have Vishnu's the interest first.
Yeah.
But at the end of that chapter, he says, but still, they have some self-interest.
Yeah.
So he said, so these are not pure devotees.
Well, when the term pure devotee
Yeah.
is used,
Yeah.
you have to understand the context.
Right.
So But
Yeah, I'm just saying in terms of Kardama met Vishnu and Vishnu
yeah,
appeared as his son, but
yeah.
what was his intention?
Okay, but see, here's the thing, that the 5 levels of bhaktas that Gurudev talked about very often,
Yeah,
and also it's coming from Brihad Bhagavatamrita,
Right,
the commentary of Sanatana Goswami.
exactly.
So the whole purpose of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita is to delineate the hierarchical structure
Right.
of
So
bhaktas.
Kardama is considered in the first level of that?
Well,
structure?
I can't really say, but there was some desire is there.
Yeah.
Okay, some desire is there.
I mean, he meets
But-
Vishnu and then he says, I want a wife.
But the level, but the level of purity is very high in him. Otherwise, Krishna would not have appeared. Krishna never appears to someone that is not very pure, right?
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't appear in the womb of a demon or a demoness, So, but what Gurudev is telling here is such an important point, and you'll see how he develops this point.
Okay.
It's
I just wanted to ask that question.
yeah, good question. So, so now he's referring to the history of Devahuti and Kapila Dev. So now Kapila Dev told his mother, and here's the key verse. This is a very, very key verse. We've memorized this and used it many, many times. And the verse is all about hearing from the pure Vaishnava. Satam prasangan mamavirya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha taj joshanad ashu apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati. Yeah. So here, the translation is given here, in the assembly of pure devotees, powerful discussions, mamavirya samvido, the powerful discussions illuminating my heroic deeds. This is Kapila Dev telling to his mother. In the assembly of pure devotees, powerful discussions illuminating my heroic deeds become a rejuvenating tonic for both the ears and the heart. By hearing these narrations, one quickly advances on the path of emancipation from ignorance. First, he develops faith, shraddha, in me. This is the sequence. Anukramishati, anukrama means in sequence. First, by this process, he develops faith, shraddha, in me. No, the word is shraddha in the verse. Shraddha, ratir. Well, then, I'm just explaining what is here.
I know.
So,
I only brought it up because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in that commentary.
yeah, that definitely it would be nishta. Yeah. And then what? Then rati. And rati is the sprout of prema, of pure love. And finally, he experiences the awakening of prema bhakti, pure devotional service. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then Gurudev is pointing out, because what is this verse, Satam Prasangan? It's all about the prasanga of the Satam, of the pure Vaishnavas, in their association. Then Gurudev is also quoting from Madhya Lila, Sanatana Siksha, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva, Shastre, Vai. Then Matra, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Vai. The verdict of all revealed scriptures, Sarva Shastra, is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. So, now Gurudev is really going to expand on this point about sadhu sangha. If one is in sadhu sangha for even a moment, it will not go in vain. Even for a moment. Lavamatra. What does lavamatra mean?
Love is 1/11 of a second.
Yes. Lava. So, but then Gurudev is specifying that association. He said, even for a moment, it will not go in vain. But this association should be taken with honor and very strong belief. This is the stipulation. Otherwise, there will be no effect. No effect, he says twice. Bharat Maharaj, now he moves on to Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was a very advanced Vaishnava, and he was just about to attain Rati, the stage of Bhav. He had crossed Nishtha Bhakti and also the stage of Ruchi, relish for the holy name and Harikatha. He had become very renounced, and he had entered the stage of Asakti. He left his home, his wife, children, everything. He came to a very dense forest, and there he lived alone, chanting and remembering. But what happened? He became attached to a deer who was drowning in the river. He took pity on that baby deer. This is called mercy in the mode of goodness. Devotees should be merciful, but not attached. Bharat Maharaj was correct in being merciful, but he became attached, and thus his attachment to Krishna diminished. Soon he died, and at the time of his death, remembering only that deer, he became a deer. He was most careful in his second birth and also in his third. So therefore, you also, who's he talking to? Us. Gurudev is talking to us, sitting up there in the pavilion. I wasn't there for that. I was in Russia at that time. But Gurudev is telling to the devotees in a very serious way, therefore you also should be very careful about this. Even in a high stage, there is a chance of falling down. You may be chanting and remembering, but because you are still full of anarthas, and you still have no taste, ruchi, and there is so much chance of your falling. We should therefore always be in what? Elevated association. If Bharat Maharaj had been with Narad, he would not have continued in this world for 3 lives. But he did not have such association. So try, therefore, even at the stage of Nishtha or Ruchi, to always be in the association of who? Advanced devotees. What is the essence of this story told by Srila Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj when he was going to die? Shukadev said, you came here having given up your son and all kinds of attachments. So Shukadeva Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, who is going to die. So you came here giving up your son and all kinds of attachment, and therefore I am telling you Harikatha. You should not be like Bharat. You should not give a moment to other attachments. At the time of death, Bharat remembered a deer and also became a deer. Similarly, if one has many dogs and is very attached to them, it is certain that he will be a dog in his next life. No one can avoid this. What you are attached to, you will think about and you will become. Yes. So, if one has any worldly attachment, what did he say? If one has what? Any. Did he say big worldly attachments? He just said any. Any. Whatsoever. Remember the morning walk? Prabhupada? Even if you are attached to the beauty of a sunset, you will have to take birth in this material world again. Remember that?
How many times he would say, even an atomic fraction
Yes.
of attachment,
Yes.
you must take birth.
Yes. So, if one has any worldly attachment, he could become a serpent, tiger, deer, horse, and so on. A man may even become a very beautiful lady, although previously he was in a male form, and he will become very lusty. If a lady remembers a male person, she may become like that male, and she will be very lusty. It may be like that. One may also become a donkey, because donkeys are very lusty. One may become a donkey, monkey, dog, and so on. So do not be attached. From the beginning, try to always chant and remember Krishna. But not Krishna alone. If you remember only Krishna, you may merge into him like the Mayavadis do. We should remember Krishna with his devotees. If your Gurudev has given you a particular ideal, try to follow that. He wants to give so many things, and he does give them, but if the disciple has no association, he may not be able to fully understand and follow. Gurudev gives him everything in the Gopal mantra and Kam Gayatri. But the disciple is not qualified to know what he is being given. If, however, the disciple is always in the association of high-class, elevated Vaishnavas, he will realize all these things. Such Vaishnavas can make you realize what is in the Gopal mantra. It was given to Brahma by Krishna himself. Kam Gayatri was also given to him. By these mantras, one can enter Goloka Vrindavan. More than remembering Krishna, we should remember Yashoda or gopis like Rupa Manjari and others. Then we can serve Krishna in that same way. There are so many things to say on this subject. It is our duty to follow Srila Rupa Goswami, which is why we are called Rupanugas. We say in the Jayadvani, Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. But we do not know what Rupanuga is. We say it, but we do not know what Rupanuga is. We should try to know by questioning, what is Rupanuga? What is Raganuga? What is Rag? What is Shraddha? What is Nishta? What is Ruchi? What is Asakti, Rati, Prem, Sneha, Man, Pranay, Rag, and Anurag? Shri Guru Gauranga, Radha Govinda. So, then we will know about all these stages of bhakti. We may read Srimad Bhagavatam, But if we do not have proper association, we cannot attain anything. Therefore, satam prasangan mama virya samvido. We can learn so many things from Bharat Charitra, the life history and character of Bharat Maharaj. And in his third birth, Bharat was very renounced. He became a Brahmana, but at the same time, he seemed totally like a madman. Although he was not actually mad, he always remembered Krishna and he never associated with worldly persons. It is doubtful, however, if he received the kind of bhakti that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. Anarpita chirim chirat karunayavatirna kalo. You are so lucky. Who? Who is Gurudev telling this to? Yes, to us. He's saying, you are so lucky. More than Bharat Maharaj and others. That's a little amazing to try to understand that. But yet it's true. How is it true that we're more lucky than Bharat Maharaj?
He didn't appear in Mahaprabhu's lineage.
Yeah. He didn't come in this Danya Kali Yuga. He didn't come in the line of Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami. He didn't hear all these instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, all these examples are given of very exalted personalities. They're very exalted. Bharat Maharaj was not a neophyte. He was a very advanced Vaishnava. He made a mistake, became attached, had to take birth, 2 more bodies, but he was very serious in his third birth. And he attained spiritual perfection. He attained spiritual perfection after that third birth. But what was the nature of that perfection? Did he attain what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give in this very rare Kali Yuga? No.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
We were on the morning walk in the Bay Area with Gurudev during that time when we were doing the discussions about the management and organization of the society.
Mm-hmm.
You, me, and Nemi.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And Gurudev said to the 3 of us, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam or you hear the lectures, you'll get transcendental knowledge. He said, but unless you hear the Hari Katha from the lips of the sadhu, a Rasika Vaishnava, then the moods of the devotees of Braj will not be transferred to your heart. They are transferred only in this way.
Right. I remember, and I've mentioned this many times over the years, that Gurudev also asked us a question. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember that. I didn't know whether you wanted me to bring that up.
Well, you can bring it up, sure.
No, yeah. No, you told.
So he asked the question, there may be a devotee who's even living in Vrindavan, even chanting 1 lakh every day and doing all these activities, but he does not have an exalted guru. So his question to us, you remember what it was?
What will be his, I don't know.
No, it was
I don't remember.
Will he be able, without guru, to attain perfection by doing all those devotional activities?
Right.
So he asked to us, I don't remember what each one of us said, I remember what I said. You know, I said, no, he won't. But then Gurudev said, why not? You know, and you know, I think one of us brought up Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastre, all of that, right?
I think that was
But none of us were able to actually give the exact reason. The reason was very, very specific, what Gurudev was referring to. Why he cannot attain. He doesn't have this guru, so why he's doing all these activities? Why can he not attain? And Gurudev's answer was, because where will the moods come from?
Right, and that's when he,
Yes. Then he elaborated on that.
by saying to us.
Yes. Yeah. Where will the moods, the bhavs? The bhavs are coming from the pure Vaishnavas who are rasik, who are bhavuk. Without that, no possibility. Yeah.
So what is our situation that now that we're not in the association of the Rasik Bhuvuk Vaishnava, that the moods will come? How do we...
I'll let Maharaj give his answer to that one first.
I want to hear
Here's the thing. It is not necessarily that one has to be 24 hours a day, continually, year after year after year, in such association, directly.
Some seed is given.
Some seed is given by that Vaishnava, but at least one has to meet them and hear from them.
Yeah.
You know how Prabhupada told, maybe 12 times he said, I met my Guru Maharaj. Remember how he told that? Encouraging all of us that don't think that it's only through constant association. Although it's true that it is. And that's what we're going to hear more, because Gurudev really breaks it down and goes into it. He says, even in the stage of bhav, you need very high-class association. There is no other way. But your question is, first of all, and Gurudev does talk about that. He says that one has to water that seed, what is given by Guru. One has to continue to follow the process and so forth, right? What did Gurudev say? Oh, in your next life, you will have very high association. At any point in any jiva's life, they must have this association. There is no way to go to Goloka Vrindavan. We've been reading that, hearing it over and over again in this lecture of Gurudev's. One has to have this association and hear from such personalities. But then he also specifies the disciple also has to have previous life impressions and impressions in this life. It's not finished. Not such an easy thing to go to Goloka Vrindavan, and in our next life we'll have to continue unless we have attained that highest stage of bhav in this life, which is very unlikely, right? But we should know that this association, even Gurudev used to say, at least 2 more lifetimes, he would say. You know, he would say that to certain, and he said, I think that many of the disciples of Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj may have these samskaras, but at least 2 more lifetimes. And in those lifetimes, Krishna will arrange that you will have very, very high sadhu sangha. And then he would mention, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like Narottam Das Thakur, like that.
This was in Puri. When we went to that well, and we drank the water from Padmanabha Puri's well, and it said, anyone who drinks this water will get praying Mahaprabhu.
Yes.
So then they asked Gurudev. He said, after a few lifetimes, maybe 3, maybe 2 for some people, he was saying, then you'll get.
He said many times.
But that there was that in particular, and it struck my mind, and that's why after I took sannyas, the first place I went was to Padmanabha Puri's well. I wanted to be
made an investment. Okay, so just continuing on, we just read, Gurudev said it is doubtful, however, if Bharat Maharaj received the kind of bhakti that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. Anarkita chirim shirat karunaya avatirna kama. You are so lucky, Gurudev is saying, more than Bharat Maharaj and others. You are so fortunate to have come at this time, just after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, we've contemplated this during our devotional years, that it's actually mind-blowing that jivas wandering in the material universe are taking birth on this planet where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came only 500 years ago, and coming in contact with the highest pure devotees living on the planet. You know, it's not a very easy thing to comprehend such extreme mercy. But we are so unfortunate. Well, first he's saying, we're very fortunate to have come at this time, just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but we are so unfortunate that we do not want to follow the process. We want to take gold. We want worldly reputation or other things from Vaishnavas, but not their high-class love and affection for Krishna. Bharat Maharaj never attained this love. He received so much advanced knowledge, but he did not receive a drop of love for Radha and Krishna conjugal. He never even heard about it. He never had the chance. Chitraketu Maharaj was also an elevated Vaishnava, as was Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad used to see Krishna here, there, and everywhere, but he did not have any anugatya, any guidance from the gopis. He's asking the question, but did he have any anugatya from the gopis? Did he have any taste or greed for attaining the mood of the gopis' love? Because he had no association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, he never had this greed. Do not neglect. This is the last paragraph in this chapter. He's saying, do not neglect or misuse this time. Otherwise, you will be like butchers. He's referring to the verse, Navrittatarshaya Upagiyamana, where it says at the end that Pashugna, killer of the soul, killer of animals. So he's saying, otherwise, if you neglect or misuse this time, you will be like butchers, killers of your very self. Always be detached and try to utilize your time properly. In the absence of good association, well, no, Gurudev is answering. In the absence of good association, if you are sincere and you pray to Krishna, who is so merciful, he will at once arrange everything. You can pray to Nityananda Prabhu, who is more merciful than anyone. Oh, please manage this. Give me the association of Rasik devotees so that I can hear Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Be merciful. I depend on you. I am giving my whole heart to you. If you have very strong belief in Nityananda, he will surely manage everything. Go ahead.
A lot of our God brothers, yours and mine, refused to come and see Srila Gurudev, right? Based on this very conception on one level. So speak to that, because it's important to understand the mistake that they made and not take when high-class association is available.
Right.
no matter how much good association and how much you had heard previously. You should not neglect high-class association.
Yeah, actually, this lecture given in 1999 is 2 years after Gurudev began to come to the West. 97, 98, 3 years after, right? And that time period, these godbrothers of ours, they were campaigning against him. And they were doing it in a very offensive way. Very, very offensive. So Srila Gurudev, he was stressing this point of the high-class association because that's why he was coming to the West. And yet, they were blind and ignorant to be able to take advantage of that. Right up to the very end of 15 years of his world traveling. Same thing with Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. Same thing with Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So the lessons are there for all posterity, that by doing so, you're actually killing your own soul. You may think, oh, I had so much association with this pure devotee who's my guru, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I don't need anything more. But that is not the fact. It is never the fact. And we see in Gaudiya Mutt there is more sensitivity to this point. They understand more, you know. And even Srila Gurudev, the time when he came to the Gaudiya Mutt, he talked about his good fortune that there were so many exalted disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He came in 1947, right? About 11 years after the disappearance of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. But he came to the lotus feet of the topmost disciple, one of the topmost disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And in that association of his Guru Maharaj, he had the association of all the very advanced Vaishnavas. He got to hear from them, he said. I was so fortunate, I got to hear from them. I got to serve them and associate with them. You know, I have so many Siksha Gurus. We see our Srila Bharati Maharaj.
Maharaj said the same thing. He told me like that.
Yeah, well, he gave the book.
Yeah.
He gave the book, which is the proof. My beloved masters, so many different biographies of who we didn't know. Especially one of them, for me, was Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, who I never heard anything really about. But when I read his chapter in that book about him, I fell in love with Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. You know.
You know, Srila Prabhupada asked his sister, who had Hari Nam from Saraswati Thakur.
Right. Yeah.
She wanted to get Diksha. He said, you go to Saranga Goswami Maharaj. He's the one who should give you Diksha.
Yeah. There was one, you know, I think that at first she approached Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, and Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj declined. Yeah. It was right after the disappearance of Prabhupada. He was not initiated. Yeah, right. And I think he also directed, you can go to Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they held him in very high esteem.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Braj?
What about the value of Shastriya sadhusanga?
Well, yeah, we talked about that in one class. You probably weren't there at that time, but we talked extensively about that point. Shastriya Sadhusanga, which is the article written by Param Gurudev, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, that in the absence of such personalities, we can pray to the Shastra. Gurudev also told like this, and pray that they can enter our heart, right? And that so that is why they leave their books. They leave their books behind for this very reason. But it doesn't cancel out the necessity of, when the opportunity is there, to hear from such exalted Vaishnavas. You want to say something?
No,
Oh.
Govinda Maharaj said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said all Vaishnavas tell you to read their books.
Yeah.
He said, but you have to understand that realization of that comes by the association of high-class sadhus.
Yes.
He said, I have such personal experience.
Mm.
And he was talking about Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, whose name was Bhagwat Das, and he became
He became the Siksha Guru.
Charanadas Babaji, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Charanadas Babaji,
Right.
who was
And-
Govinda Maharaj's Shiksha Guru.
Yes. He's a Rasa Guru.
Right, yeah.
He learned all Rasa Tattva from him, he told.
He was, yeah, that's where he learned all the rest of stuff. And he was always in Uttam mood. He was
Yeah.
never in Madhyam
Yes.
Uttam mood. He was always in Uttam mood.
Yeah, I remember the story.
Shuddha Dvaiti
The
told the
Shuddha
story.
Dvaiti story.
Yeah.
That he, just by seeing him, it was like Harinam was coming from his mouth. He couldn't even stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the scenario of having had sadhu sangha, and then later on, because Gurudev once said, if Gurudev is given the light by which you can read books, then so much benefit will come. So if in the past we had direct sadhu sangha, then Shastra sadhu sangha can be very powerful, is it not?
Yes, because of the impressions. Gurudev pointed out that by that sadhu sangha, we get impressions. That's what he was talking about. That we need these impressions from past life and also in this life. So your ability to actually read the books, I mean, we can even see in our own lives. When we first started reading 50 years ago, you know, how much did we really comprehend? Although it was absolutely beneficial, everything. But when we now, after having had so much Siksha Guru Sadhu Sangha in our lives, everything becomes totally alive off the page.
I used to do something with some of our godbrothers. I would tell them, I want you to read a chapter of Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita before you go to Badger. Then go to Badger and hear Gurudev speak.
Mm-hmm.
When you come back, read the same chapter.
Did any of them do it?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And they, wow, it was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, night and day.
Yes.
You know, completely different chapter.
Yeah.
So many things just popped out in my eyes and I could see. Because that seed was planted there.
Yes. So, you know, Gurudev told that when we were on parikramas, you know, and coming each year, and Gurudev told, he said, that you cannot see what is happening for you, what is being implanted, all impressions. He said, you cannot see, but we can see, you know. So actually, after the disappearance of such personalities, we're also remembering, and those impressions of what we felt, what we experienced in his association, it is such a valuable jewel that we have within our hearts from that. And those impressions will enable us more and more to go forward into the next life, and then whatever other lifetimes. But I just want to say, we have to do what Gurudev told here. We have to follow the process, you know. And so, there's more nectar to come. We've finished the time, and now it's time for Gaur Artik and Radha Krishna Junior Artik. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Samaveta